Entertainment Banter is a podcast that may use inappropriate language for some viewers, and as always, please wear your face mask while listening to the podcast. Thank you.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another evening of Entertainment Banter, or I like to call it Matt Griping.
And I'm Matt, ready to gripe.
What grinds his gears. And my name is Joel, who's going to try to help him grind those gears today.
All right, let's grind them, baby.
So during these podcasts, I write notes down of things, because in the past we didn't do that, and now I've been writing down notes of like future podcasts that we can do, and so I keep notes of all that, so that way we have more topics to talk in the future. And enough about how we do things and people think, right, this is boring. So I like putting quarters in a mat. It's very easy.
I hope you have enough.
I put a lot of... Dude, I can put a $1 bill in it. We can go all night. And then I can take a nap and go to sleep, and you wouldn't even know I wasn't even talking, because you'd just be blabbing along to
That's true.
our
but
one
that's
fan.
how the majority of the people... There's a lot of road car accidents because they listen to our podcast, and they all just fall asleep when I start talking.
That's why we had that pile up on the 5.
That's right. That's why we have such low ratings, too, because everyone's dead. Everyone who listens to us crashes their car.
Everyone in your town listens to us, right? Is that just Rachel?
Yes, that and the deer outside.
That's just the deer. They hate it.
My private secluded
They hate it.
location. Yeah.
I know. He's off the grid.
Away from the world.
Off the grid, this piece of shit is. So topic I wrote down. This is the whole topic. And also the notes with the topic to explain what the topic means.
Okay.
You ready?
I hope so. Let's do it.
Fans versus Hollywood. When is enough enough? Mario Brothers was created, the movie. Wolverine Origins with Deadpool in it. Why do they mess up so much? Best interest of... Well, I can't even read my writing. Best interest of fuss? Question mark?
So just to get... All right, so are you saying...
Best interest of us. I think we're trying to say that, like...
Why best interest in mind, meaning the fan base?
Maybe. So why is, like... So, like, we've talked about this in many other podcasts. But
I feel like we really
We've
have.
never focused just on that topic. We've never just said, we're going to talk about why Hollywood's messing up. We never even discuss it. We do discuss it in the podcast. We always mention, like, why are we doing this? Like, we just talked about Star Wars and why they're not going the way the fans want, or yada, yada, yada.
Right.
So, like, why were these certain movies made? Like, why? So, like, let's look at, like, first note I have here as Mario Brothers. Why was Mario Brothers created? Because Mario Brothers on Nintendo was doing fantastic, and this Mario Brothers was created when Super Nintendo came out.
The actual game, yes.
The actual game, and it was coming, and it was about to come out on N64, I believe. It wasn't on 64 yet, or was it? I don't remember, but it was around that time.
Maybe Super Nintendo, because I think it was only Super Nintendo.
I think it was only Super Nintendo,
because Nintendo was the only one that was out at the time, and we were about ready to move to Germany, and I remember seeing a commercial or a news broadcast, and they're like, well, I hope you like your Nintendo, but now there's a Super Nintendo. And I was like, what? Because it took like 4 years for me to get the Nintendo.
Blew your mind.
You know what I mean? Because like my parents were like, we're not paying that.
It means you just got the Nintendo before they released
so
the
I
Super
just
Nintendo.
got my Nintendo, and then they're like, here comes the Super Nintendo. And I was like, son of a bitch. Of course, I was like 12 at the time, but it's just like... So, yeah, I mean, I think Mario Brothers, the movie, came out in the 80s, right? Or the early 90s.
Early 90s. So they created it, or mid-90s. They created it because it was a popularity, right? So that means they already had a video game. They already had a video game. They had a storyline to this video game, and they already had something they could follow.
Right.
Why did they stray from that path?
Well, you could argue that they didn't, but they just did it in their classic weird Hollywood way.
But why take icons that we already know we love and try to reinvent it into something new when you already know this is working? Why change it?
Right. I think it's a complicated issue.
Why fix something that's not broken?
No, I get you. I think it's a complicated issue because there's a couple of factors involved. I'll give you another example. He-Man and the Masters of the Universe with, what's his name? Ralph, is it Ralph London? I can't remember his name. The Rocky IV Russian fighter.
Oh, the one where it's like Russian versus machine or whatever, machine versus...
Yes. That actor, he played He-Man in the 1980s movie of He-Man and the Masters of the Universe. And what they did was they put it in modern time on our planet Earth. The characters left their world and came to ours. And it's interesting because I think there's a lot of factors involved when it comes to I don't know about Nintendo and Mario. That's a little more complicated. But when it's a toy brand, they want to sell new toys, so they need an excuse to change things up. So I think when it comes to something like that, it's always about the money and the brand and what they want to add to the brand or change or make new. So in that situation, they just really kind of went off the deep end with that. I think if there's never been a really cool He-Man where you actually are in that world, I think that would be an amazing movie to see, especially after Lord of the Rings and stuff like that.
Hasbro?
It was Mattel, and I don't know who has it now.
Mattel these days?
Mattel is a failing company. They're struggling hard.
I mean,
as far as Mattel has Barbie still and He-Man, I guess. But
Sony would be smart to buy that instead of Disney.
But getting back to Mario Brothers, it was the 80s, like all these 80s movies. It was
not
tough.
80s because I remember it really well.
It was
and I was
80s
born
and early
in the
90s.
80s. Early 90s, mid-90s.
It could not have been
everyone
mid-90s.
is as old as you. I'm looking it up. Keep talking. I want to look it up.
I'm going to guess it probably came out in 89.
Nope.
That's my guess.
I'm going to say 93.
All right, we'll look it up. 93, you might be right. Who knows? But anyways, what, am I right? Am I right? What is it? When did it? I can barely read that.
93.
Oh, 93.
Called
okay,
it,
well,
man.
whatever. Okay, but special effects were just starting to come out, right? Star Wars, 86,
Yeah.
all that stuff was still pretty new. You know what I mean? Like, so everybody was on board with, because of Lucasfilm and Jim Henson's Creature Shops and all those things, everybody was building the alien xenomorph, Freddy Krueger's makeup. I mean, it was a time where they were really challenging all of these special effects things. So everybody wanted to see special effects. So they wanted to use them in their movies at that time. That's, you know what I mean? That's part of the problem.
Right.
There's a lot of movies out there actually that did that and were just terrible. And adding special effects made it worse. Like I just watched a movie, I forgot, was The Last Dragon. It's supposed to be like a Bruce Lee tribute movie, so to speak, where a black actor plays the last dragon. And at the end of the movie, he's doing this fight scene, and it's like straight up Dragon Ball Z style, where all of a sudden the whole movie was like a normal 80s weird movie, and then they just started incorporating like laser fists and everything else, and I was like, what the hell? Like out of the blue, they just started adding special effects. And so
just because they could.
Because they could, and they thought that's what sells. You know what I mean?
They thought we were going to like the new shiny thing.
Right. So getting back to Super Mario, a weird Koopa guy in a weird small head or a weird, you know what I mean, world, like Goonies was coming out. The sets looked a lot kind of like a Goonies-ish type set, you know. They were just taking, oh, this was popular in Goonies. Oh, this was popular in Star Wars. Oh, this was popular here. And they just started throwing it into
But they
movies.
chose Mario Brothers as their theme kind of thing. And they already had something.
Boy, right?
They already had something as a shell, if you will. Lack of a better term, or no pun intended. They already had the Mario Brothers TV show that had the cartoon in it, and then the Zelda cartoon. But they had the Mario Brothers, and those guys are actually. That was kind of like more believable. Oh, these are Mario Brothers. You know what I mean? Like even though they were fat Italians, they were more believable than what we got in the movie.
100%. And maybe you answered your question. Maybe they said, because the other thing too about Hollywood is they always go, "What haven't we done?" You know, we have to make this unique. We have to make this different. In fact, that's a lot of reason.
Which I'm glad they didn't make the Zelda movie back then. They would have made a disaster. Now, if they make it, I think they'd probably listen a little more.
Oh, especially with all the Lord of the Rings type stuff, it would be so much better.
So good, and they can just choose, like, grab the Ocarina of Time and make that into a movie. That'd be the smartest thing.
So with Mario, you're right. Maybe the TV show, they're like, well, we already did that with the TV show, so we got to do something different. But
it's so stupid. Why mess with a?
But they dropped the ball on Dragon Ball Z. Like when they did the Dragon Ball Z movie, that was a huge letdown.
So why did that happen? So why did that occur? Like before that movie was made, Dragon Ball Evolutions that we don't really talk about that existed. That was a live action movie that was created. So why was it created when they had this full-on storyline built already? They could have just made one of the movies live action. They could have made their own version of the movie. Absolutely could have gone with it. They could have made a movie based off of the Raditz saga or even the Piccolo saga. And they even had characters they wanted to use.
It could be like the cinematic universe of Marvel. It could have gone on forever.
And they were trying to think of and they already had actors lined up. Jackie Chan was supposed to be in it. Jet Li was supposed to be in it. They already had people Keanu Reeves was supposed to be involved in it. Like they had all these people like involved, and all of a sudden it just took a turn and decided we got this drivel. So what was it? It's probably mainly money and budget cuts at that point.
It's what it is. It's tough. Okay, because like
everything's tough.
I know. Here you go. Frozen. Disney's Frozen, right? They made the movie.
Yes.
Disney was having flops, one flop after another.
Right.
No matter if the movies were good, but Princess and the Frog was an epic failure for Disney.
Princess and the Flaw, yeah.
The flop. No, Princess and the Frog
was
a
good
flop.
Movie.
It was a good, that's different. It was a good movie, but it was a flop in Disney's mind financially, and they were flopping. Tinkerbell came out, and that was a huge flop. Like they were just flopping movies left and right. And then all of a sudden they did Frozen, and all of a sudden, because enough little girls went to the theater, they didn't know, they didn't expect it to happen, and all of a sudden it blew up. And so what does Disney do? Disney's like, Frozen everything. It won't be ready for 10 years, but Frozen everything. And then by the time they get it up and running, no one gives a shit about Frozen anymore. I feel like Dragon Ball.
Care.
I think not as much as they did. I guarantee you they don't.
No, I agree with you.
But I think that's what happened with the Dragon Ball Z movie. As I think, oh, look, Cartoon Network's playing Dragon Ball Z. There's a small fan base. This is a market that hasn't been tapped in the industry. Let's make a movie. And like they just made it, and it's like they didn't do their homework. They didn't really watch it. They didn't really look at it.
No, they didn't even look at it.
And they just kind of made it. And it, for anyone that's a fan of the show, they just knew it was garbage. And they're like, oh, let's kind of make it like, because Mortal Kombat was really popular before Dragon Ball Z came out, so let's kind of combine the two. Like, let's make a Mortal Kombat Dragon Ball Z.
Well, the movie would have made a great musical, like how it was laid out. Like that would have been more acceptable than what it was supposed to be, which is it was garbage.
Right.
Yeah, I know. I get what you're trying to say here, and I wish they would have thought a little more into it. And Dragon Ball Z had its ups and downs. Like there was a point where it was going down in popularity, but then it skyrocketed when they started bringing out the new movies, and Akira Toriyama became involved because DBGT kind of killed it off. But Toonami kind of brought it back.
Well, interesting enough though, but GT can't blame it GT completely in the sense that nothing else was done. It was the end. If you wanted any more, you had to watch GT. It wasn't even an option. So
you wanted more of that Goku.
Like it was one of those things where it's like something's better than nothing. But in the case of GT, it's actually wrong.
I would have to 100% agree with you on that. Since we saw it, ones who've seen it will say that. Ones who have not seen it will be like, "Come on!" And then
what's interesting too is I will say movies that did it right. The problem is, and we were talking about this about the Lion King trailer, like there's no reason to do this movie. And the weird part is they're actually doing it right. This is like one of those times we're actually saying, hey, why don't they move to make the movie the way we want it to? In the case of the Lion King, it literally looks like they did.
Well, I watched
and now it's not working. You know what I mean?
The Aladdin trailer, I watched more of it, another trailer in it, and I was actually, okay, Will Smith may be able to pull this off. So I'm curious.
I'm at that point, you just have to take that punch in the gut and just ride with it. But what I'm saying is, I was talking to my wife about this movie too, the Lion King trailer. Right. Like when you go to the theater and you see it, if you were to play the animated trailer with the new one that they're doing side by side, it's legitimately the same.
Yeah, they didn't change it.
No, and so we're getting back to this whole thing.
Which is great. Don't change it. If it already works, why change it?
But that one, it doesn't work. So
why doesn't it work?
You can't.
So you wanted to change. You wanted to change in Lion King.
It can't be exactly the same.
We don't know that. We don't. I mean, if it does, if you can watch the movie side by side and they're exactly the same, okay, then we can talk. So we can do our prediction of that movie coming up and all that. We can do that's all we do is predictions. So let me write that one down. Let me write Lion King down.
You're so ridiculous.
I'm gonna write that one down.
Listen. If you don't make predictions, how do you know if your opinions are valid? Because the only way you know your opinions are valid are when they come out and you're proven right or wrong. That's what the whole business of our podcast has always been about.
No, we're supposed to be talking about entertainment. I mean,
entertainment.
We touched on sports. We touched on everything. Books.
Well, you know what? There's not a lot going on in the world these days. No one cares about sports anymore because no basketball player is loyal to any team. It's not like Michael Jordan's era where the Chicago Bulls are winning their 7th ring. Everyone's hopping where the money is. Golden State is going to win every championship because they've got all the high rolling players. And that's That's just what it is. So that's boring to talk about. You know what I mean?
Okay.
You don't even know what the hell I'm talking about.
What are you talking about?
Exactly, sports. You don't know. So, anyways, getting back to what we were talking about is modern movies. I was going to say the movies that aren't making a lot of money but do it well. Like, think about this: the Flintstones. Like, that movie was done right.
They made 2 of those, and that was done right.
It was done right, so it can be done and is popular. But I don't know how much money that made compared to something like Dragon Ball Z or
Dragon Ball Z made
Super Mario Brothers.
What about Mortal Kombat? They made 2 of those movies because the first one actually was pretty good, and it was done kind of right.
Right. The thing about that too is, and you have to, again, it goes back to the era conversation or the era argument, which is video games were fairly new, and so there weren't a lot of movies at the time. That was like a franchise that hadn't been tapped much and was an unknown market, meaning like they didn't know if it was going to make money. And one movie as a perfect example where they dropped the ball that could have made or break the video game market is Halo. They never did their Halo movie, and they never did it right.
They never did
because
that movie.
if they did it right, the video game market, I feel, would have taken off in the movie industry a lot more. Does that make sense?
So,
like, you could have a Gears of War.
Did you see District 9?
Trailer? I did not. I know of it. I didn't bother to see it. So,
from what I'm understanding is that was the director originally slated to direct the Halo movie. He's an up-and-coming director at that time. I don't know who it is. I don't know if he's still working. But District 9 was actually a pretty good movie. All that money that was used to use him and create a Halo movie, all of a sudden, when they got the director on staff, a lot of investors pulled out and said, we don't trust him, blah, blah, blah. And they went ahead and used the money, what they had, District 9. Now, all the investors regret what they did, but that was the chance that Halo had. I don't know why Halo hasn't been made since, because I know they're hand over fist money. It would, if they do it right,
Microsoft.
It would be fucking great. It would be an awesome... They can just take the book, The Fall of Reach. Everyone would love to see like Master Chief and him becoming who he is today, like an origin of who he is. And then you can do the second movie. It could be a trilogy. The second movie could be Halo Combat Evolved. You know, that's the movie. That's, you know, they find Halo and this is what it is.
Well,
and
they got to be careful about it too.
And then the second movie could be, or the third could be the ending, like, oh, the war is not over, or whatever they do. You know, they can do it. It can be done.
Well, they'd have to be careful because they can't do it like Starship Troopers. They can't campy it. You know what I mean?
No, it cannot be campy. It's got to be serious.
It's got to be
a serious movie.
Yeah.
So, with that being said, they made Wolverine Origins.
Right. We've talked about this numerous times too.
Yes, and that whole movie. Why? Why was that movie even made?
Well, you know the answer. It's because Fox had a contract. They had to make so many.
But they didn't have to
make a year.
They didn't have to make all of that into one movie. They could have made the Wolverine movie into 2.
It goes back to everybody that makes movies doesn't. They're not true fans.
They can't,
and they don't have vision.
And here's the bullshit thing too. So there's a book. I told you about this. There is a book.
Yeah, I know.
On Weapon X, and this is like if they did Deadpool back in the day, and they actually made it to what Deadpool, you know what I mean? Like that movie soared for the rated R movies, right?
Yes.
If they made that movie back in the day and they saw that a Marvel movie could make millions, even billions on a rated R title, on a rating, that they probably would have made the Weapon X movie back in the day. Because that would have been amazing. The thing is, the book, they mention a nurse in that book, and I think it's the only time they mention that nurse, right? This is in this book. That means, and they mention that nurse, that same name, in the movie, meaning someone on the creative side read the book. So did he not have a big enough voice? Was it the writer who just got kiboshed by so much? Or were they trying to cram too much in this movie and they just couldn't do it? So they had to gloss over the Weapon X program, which was the biggest program in Wolverine's life.
You have to look at it from a studio standpoint like everything else, which is, you never know what your producers and your studio are willing to do and not do. So, for example, like if you're a writer and you've got a chance to make a Wolverine origin story, and the studio that you work for is unpredictable, there's a possibility that this could be the only one ever made, because that's the thing. It's like, you look at, if there's no plan, if there's no vision through the studio, you know that your film could be a one and done. Like, you know in your head that there's a possibility that they'll never make another Wolverine movie ever again.
So much into it.
But that's my point, is like, in a weird sick sort of way, I'm not saying it's right, but maybe they're thinking, you know what, if I don't do it, it will never be seen. And then what happens is people watch it, like it, and then it gets back to the studio that, oh, people liked Wolverine movie, let's make another. Well, by then, you just showed all your cards, so it's just kind of hard or impossible to do it.
Not everyone liked that first one, but it did make money because it still had Wolverine in it, and Hugh Jackman's a goddess.
Right. But money talks.
So with on your talk, too, about Star Wars earlier, about how, like, well, this movie is like the canon father is trying to fix, try to fix the fuck-ups from the past. They made a second Wolverine movie. It wasn't too bad. It was actually a pretty good movie, but it wasn't as good like it could have been. But then they made Logan, which was a baller
but that was
movie.
back under Marvel's umbrella.
No, it wasn't
more
yet.
Cooperation. Well, with more cooperation,
it was getting
Marvel.
closer to Marvel's umbrella because they knew something was happening.
Yes. Well, the good news
also,
is about Wolverine
did really well, and they wanted to.
Well, the good news is about anything that Fox and Sony have is that now, especially Fox, obviously, because Disney owns Fox, is there's an opportunity to do it right again. So, I mean, at least unlike Star Wars, at least Marvel's Day in the Sun is still there. You know what I mean? It can be done right now. And the key is if the studios make the time to do the plan. That's the thing. You can't just pump them out. You know what I mean? Like, it's funny how Lucasfilm doesn't do Indiana Jones movies. Let's pump out Indiana Jones movies. One every year. Like, we got Lucasfilm. Why aren't we pumping out those movies? Because it's because it's Paramount. But the point I'm making is they know what they're doing, and they're just choosing to do what they want to do instead of making game plans. So
it's a shame.
But look at the Smurfs. It's a really stupid example, but the Smurfs was a cute show growing up as a kid, and the idea that they come into the human world, like, why is it that they always? Why? Yeah, why do you have to come into our modern world? Why do Smurfs have to jump in helicopters or some shit like that? You know what I mean? Like, why don't you just drop them in fucking Saudi Arabia?
How come the Gummy Bears haven't done that yet?
Right. You know what I mean? Like, if you made a DuckTales movie, are we going to see Scrooge McDuck walking down, Fifth Avenue? Like, where am I? Like, it's so obviously stupid. It's just, I don't understand why the need to take them out of their elements. And I think that's what gets back to your Mario question, is like, you could have had a really cool castle. You could have had really cool villains. You could have had it's a perfect opportunity to create a really cool world full of really cool creatures, and you don't see it because people think, oh, it could just be budget-wise. Oh, you know what? That costs too much to make, so we're just going to shoot it in New York City.
They try to modernize it in a sense, and then they leave it up for a sequel at the end.
Right. Well, my thing too is, though, do you notice how after the first one comes out, usually the second one is in their world, which makes, it's like, oh, I guess people want to see them in their elements. That's why I brought up the Flintstones. It's like, at least they did it right. They started in that world. It even looked cartoony and stupid, which is what I appreciated.
Which is what the show was.
Right. So before we go, can you think of a movie like the Flintstones where, like, hey, they actually did it right?
Like recent or back in the past?
in general, in any, because clearly we're more disappointed. Like Michael Bay, Turtles from Space. Like, it's not how we grew up watching it. No. So, can you think of a movie?
Marvel.
No. Okay, outside of Marvel, because like a franchise you were talking about, like Nintendo, or like Pikachu movie is a perfect example. That's coming out. Pikachu's talking. Right? These never talked in the shows, but they made that right an excuse.
That's
like,
an anime. Anime detective. It's already based off of that. Pikachu Detective is based off an anime.
It's also a game. It's a brand new game. Yeah, so they're pushing. That's the interesting thing too, is they're pushing the brand new game that's right now, as opposed to catering to their. Because I'm not a Pokemon fan, but Pokemon started with Ash and all those other characters. You would think that they would start catering to those fans with those characters, as opposed to this most recent Pikachu game that came out. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, they're ignoring the whatever, how many seasons and episodes.
But the thing is, the game was never based off the cartoon. Like, you watch the cartoon, and you're like, cool, I want to play the game, but the game is like, no.
But why are they now making the movie based off the new game? That just contradicts what you just said. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, that's what I'm saying. They're ignoring
things change.
They're ignoring the fan
the movie
base
looks good.
that
Shut
built
up.
it.
Ryan Reynolds is gonna be funny.
Did you just say the movie looks good?
It does, because Ryan Reynolds is gonna be funny.
Oh God! So let me get this straight. You're Disney, and you're gonna stamp Star Wars in a box of poo and say it looks good.
Well, I don't like Pokemon. I don't know.
Except the stamp is Ryan Johnson's name.
Know
not Ryan Johnson. Fuck.
Let me say this. I don't know
Ryan Reynolds' name.
What the fans are going to think, but I think it looks good because I don't really know Pokemon, and I think it's funny because
because Ryan Reynolds in it. You got Ryan Reynolds in it. You stamp that Ryan Reynolds on a box of shit, and it's gonna be a good box of shit. Ryan Reynolds' name right on the box.
I hope it's his shit.
Oh my God! So now there's no end in sight. As long as Ryan Reynolds is on that some way, shape, or form, it's going to be an amazing movie.
He can't do everything.
So you know what I mean? Like, he's playing himself too much. Deadpool, it works, but if he's Deadpool, they take sound bites. Is this Deadpool I'm listening to, or is it Pikachu? I can't tell.
That would be hilarious.
You know what I mean?
He's
It'd be terrible.
He's not going to have the F word. But so what? So what other movie is out there that?
I don't know. I asked you.
I know. I'm thinking. I don't know. I'm trying to think of like what movies I enjoy.
Well, I think you're proving your point. Where you know what was really good actually was I've talked about it before. It's one of my favorite movies, is Speed Racer. I think they did a great job with Speed Racer.
That. Is it the Wachowski sisters, brothers? What are they?
The
Wachowski bros.
Yeah, I gotta tell you, they honored the story of Speed Racer very well. I think that was a surprisingly good movie.
I heard it was good, and cinematically it was really good too. But I never watched it.
Yeah. So, anyways, thank you for listening to Entertainment Banter. My name is Matt,
and my name is Joel, and I'm done. Next.